Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar with Dorothy Ashman about how to safely work with dissociation. As you join us, if you don't mind muting yourself, that would be wonderful. All mute yourself, except for you, Dorothy. You keep yourself unmuted. Um, and if you don't mind posting in the chat who you are and where you're from. Love to know who is with us today. We have a really good webinar with Dorothy. Very good information if you are working with clients with dissociation. So, again, if you can post in the chat, Wynn is here with us from Aurora, about 5-6 miles from me. And Marcel from Alberta, and Don from Wisconsin. I know we have people from more places. Okay, good. So we're just going to start in a minute. I just want to mention that we have a book club. We're starting our book club this Thursday with a new book, which is the EMDR Toolbox. And if in case you don't know, if you attend the whole program, so for the EMDR Toolbox, it's 3 meetings. If you attend all 3 meetings, you are eligible for 3 EMDR credits. So if you want to join us, please do. You can see the book club on the left sidebar, the left menu of our community platform. And I think almost everybody's muted. So Dorothy Ashman, welcome to the Art and Sense of EMDR, and thank you for joining us.
Rotem. A few months ago, I was talking to Rotem about dissociation, and we got into a really interesting conversation. And he said to me, well, why don't you teach a class on dissociation for the community? And so we have been working on this webinar here, and I'm very happy to share some of my information with you all. Whether you know it or not, because all of you are EMDR therapists, you're all working with dissociation. There's lots of different kinds of dissociation. And I remember when I took my training back in 96 and 97, I just said to myself, well, if I get something that's too difficult, I'll just refer it elsewhere. Which didn't work because I was living in rural Pennsylvania and there wasn't anybody around that knew anything about working with severe dissociation. So in 2005, I took a training with Dr. Kluft, and I started to learn about severe dissociation and what you can and can't do with it with EMDR. And I'd just like to share some of that information with you today. The first thing I want to talk about is the most important part of working with dissociation is to recognize it. And that is why I started using phase 2 first instead of phase 1 when I would get a new client. I got a reputation pretty quickly as working with trauma. And before you know it, some pretty severe traumas started showing up in my office. So I always just started with phase 2. And the first part of phase 2 I started with was the DES. And the DES is deceptively simple. It looks like something that's just kind of we're expected to do. We throw it at our clients, they do it, we kind of ignore it. It's not really emphasized in the basic training because there's so much other information that you're trying to absorb. They give it to you like Sunday afternoon when your brain is pretty full to capacity with new information. So it's something that unless your consultants along the way have really emphasized it, you probably know that it's in the back of your manuals, but you may not use it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that, in the basic training, we just get so much information. It's just one more piece of information. But in the course, you actually gave me a good refresher of the DES. And I don't know if you're ready for that, but we can, I can share my screen and then we can go a little bit over DES and the colors and all that.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. because there are other screenings and other assessments you can use when you learn to when you're working with dissociation, but you can really start with the DES and use this for an awful lot of your screening. It's a screening tool. It's not an assessment. And that means that, first of all, we are free to ask questions. It can be really just a structured interview that we're having with our client. I originally used to give it to people in the waiting room and ask them to fill it out, and they'd do it and come in and would be somewhat traumatized from some of the questions. And so now I just I wait until I'm with the person in the session. I have the paper myself in my lap. I ask them the question. I circle the number. And if it's any number over 30, I say, oh, tell me about that. Because sometimes people will answer these questions in ways that are very factual to them, but are not really a dissociation reason. Okay. And so you want to know why they're giving you a high score. You can misdiagnose somebody as having a severe dissociation disorder when really they're just not really understanding that you're looking for answers that reflect dissociation. So one of my favorites is that sometimes I feel almost like two different people. I don't know, it's like 21 or so. And it's looking for somebody who's experiencing two different self states. They're looking for dissociation there, but a lot of people today, when they go to work, they have one persona, they look a certain way, they act a certain way. They're very, very different than the person that is at home when they get home with the kids. They change their demeanor, their persona completely, but they're not dissociating. It's just role appropriate behavior. But they can misunderstand that question and give it an 80 or something. And before you know it, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I've got somebody with DID here. And so it's really important that when you're doing the DES that you any question 30 or over, you just say, oh, tell me about that. And you really can get into some nice discussion of who they are. You get to know the person a lot better, and it gives you a pretty good idea of what you're going to find if you start doing EMDR. And the whole point of the DES is to not get you to start EMDR until the client is stable, and that includes not dissociating. Okay, so you can put the taxon back up, and I will go over this. So I have developed, I don't even know where I learned this before, but I have developed a way of classifying clients after they've taken the DES as a green light, a yellow light, or a red light for progressing to phase 1 and then eventually phase 3 and 4 of the MDR. So this is the DES taxon. Now, I don't know if you all got this. It was in your book, but I also included it in the handout for you after the program. You take all of your scores, there are 28 scores, and you put them in this Excel format, and it gives you some nice means at the bottom of the score here. So all you have to do is put the one I put you in the handouts has 40 for all these numbers. So you just put the number in there, hit return, and it goes down to the next number, and you can just put in all your 28 scores really quickly. So with the DES, you have 3 scores that are going to help you determine how dissociative your client might be. And again, this is a screening, so it's not absolutely always accurate, but it gives you a good place to start. So the first score you're going to look at is just the mean of all 28 scores here. So you've got here a 6.6, which is very low. We want to see this. We want to see that some people are acknowledging a normal dissociation. Many of us drive past our exits sometimes when we're listening to audiobooks. That's a form of normal dissociation. Some of us watch movies, we get really entranced in a really engaging one, and we completely lose track of time. Reading a book sometimes. So there's lots of ways that we can get kind of focused on something that's very engaging and lose track of our physical presence and time and place. We don't really think about it while we're engaged in this dissociative experience, but it's all normal. It's all normal. And so if somebody's given you all zeros for all the 28 scores, they're probably underreporting. They're probably a little, they haven't connected to you enough. They don't want to let you know for sure. And so it's kind of almost a red light if everything is zero. And every time you ask them, it's absolutely no, I've never done that kind of a thing. Okay. So this is what we like to see. So the bottom, this is a score here of 6.6, nice and low. Here are 8 scores that are taken over to the DES taxon column, and they're scored here at 3.75, again, nice and low. And down here is a very strange number that it's the taxon number. It's the probability that someone has a severe dissociative disorder. We're talking DID or OSDD. And you would move the decimal 2 points to the right, and you would get here 0.04. So this client has a 0.04% chance of being highly dissociative. Okay, that's why I call them a green light. It's like, yeah, we can do our safe place now. We can do our container. We can move through phase 2. Then we can go over to phase 1. We can do our float back. We can identify our negative cognitions and have our list of traumas that we're going to work with, and then move right into phase 3 and 4. And this person could probably move into EMDR within a few sessions of meeting with you if that's what they want to do first. If they are, just coming in to work on, a couple of traumas that are stuck, maybe some PTSD, something like that. So these are the easy ones. We don't get very many of these. These people are not our most common client. Okay, this is what I call a yellow light. And, we know yellow light means slow down. So I use this term because I want you to slow down and not go over and start EMDR yet. And what this indicates is the probability that someone has a form of dissociation that we call depersonalization or derealization. Okay, these are the people that have learned that when something strongly emotional or physically painful happens, they can step back a little bit out of their body, or sometimes it's above their body, and just numb themselves out so that they're there. They don't lose time. They know everything that's happened, but they're not feeling anything during this, whatever is happening to them. So these people have experienced trauma in the past, and their brain has figured out that this is the way it's going to handle it. Okay. The positive part of derealization and depersonalization is that you are right there in the present. You don't lose time. So you can still keep yourself safe if you need to run away, if you need to run towards the danger, if you need to take care of yourself or somebody else. You're numb, but you're still functioning. So this, again, is a very good skill that human beings have, is when things are just too emotional to deal with, we can still deal with the difficult situation and worry about the emotions afterwards. So it's pretty common that people who've had some difficult times in their life may have discovered this type of dissociation. And it's a yellow light because if you try to do EMDR with someone who has a derealization or depersonalization pattern, what's going to happen? You're going to ask them to bring up the image that you're going to work on this time, and they're going to pick a event in their past. They might give you a SUDS of 8 or so, and before you can do more than a couple of sets, they're going to tell you, they're going to say, whoa, you are the best therapist I've ever had. It's a 0. My SUDS are, you fixed it. You are great. And, when you're first starting out as an EMDR therapist, you go, huh, this stuff is really stronger than I thought. It's really good. It's a 0. And you finish it and you check it. Yep, they don't have any feeling at all when they think of that image. And The next week you come in and you do phase 8, and guess what? The SUDS is back because nothing got processed. So what happens is they just step back, they numbed out, and they didn't do this on purpose. This is just an automatic response that they've developed from other traumas in their life. And their SUDS dropped from 8 to 0. And, they are thrilled until the next week. And then you may realize, like, oh, okay, this is really a yellow light client. I have to teach them how not to step back when they feel a strong emotion before EMDR is going to work. Okay. And so it may take you a few months. There's a lot of different ways you can work with derealization, depersonalization. A lot of it revolves around mindfulness, teaching people how to come back to the present, how to use their senses. You can have somebody, put a strong tasting candy in their mouth. You can take a drink of water. You can ask them to, look around the room and give you 3 to 5 things that they can see, that they can hear, that they can touch. All the senses, if you use your senses, they all bring you back to the present. So a lot of these techniques, and then we have to teach them to recognize when they're backing up and to use some of these skills to pull themselves back in the present. That way, when you're doing EMDR with them, they can say, whoops, I'm starting to go away. Give me a second. And then you can stop the processing. You can then use some of these mindfulness techniques. If you're in the room with them, like we used to be, not virtual, you can even throw like a little ball back and forth. You can have them stand up and walk around. You can do all sorts of things. And then you can go right back into your processing. As soon as they're back down and they're no longer numb and they are in the present again, you can go back into your processing. So it's not a full stop. A yellow light just says you got to do some things first. And then you can go into processing. Standard protocol works great with these people once they can tell you if they're starting to disappear again. Okay. All right, Rotem, and then the hard one, the red light. Okay. 1.5 to 3% of the people in the world have red light dissociation. Okay, that's a lot of millions and millions of people. And even the countries that have a lot of EMDR therapists, like the United States, have very few of those therapists trained to know what to do with red light dissociation. And by that I mean DID and otherwise specified dissociative disorders, OSDD. So we say also, oh, well, I'll just refer them. Well, there's no one to refer them to these days. The few of us that are willing to take them, we take a few insurance companies. We may or may not be on the insurance company of the client that really needs some severe work. This work can last from 3 to 5 years. This is not something that people can private pay. And it's challenging work. It's challenging, but amazingly creative and amazingly meaningful. And so the reason I decided I would talk to you today was because I'm trying to inspire more of you to learn some basic skills in working with intense dissociation so that you will be ready to take, there's so many amazing trainings right now online, but all the advanced dissociation trainings assume you know all the basics. So I decided, I would teach you some basics. And then you can sign up for once you start using the basics, you can sign up for any of the advanced trainings and benefit from them. You'll know what they're talking about. So here, when we're looking at a red light, what you see here is the first score is over 30. The 30 is the cutoff for highly severe dissociation. Anything 30 and above is probably going to be a red light if they're actually answering the questions correctly. If they're giving you how often does this happen, sometimes they're giving you SUDS by mistake. They're telling you how horrible it was when they drove past their exit. And when you say, oh, you gave that a 50% So is that 50% of the time you drive by you drive past your exit and you say, no, I only did it once, but it ruined my whole day. And it was really a horrible experience for me. So you want to make sure they're giving you how great a percentage of the time this happens. So the first thing you do when you get a score like this is you make sure they understood the directions, because very often you have to re-give it. But if they are giving you the scores and they are saying, yes, I really do find things in my closet that I never bought. I have no idea where they came from, or I am losing time, or I hear voices. This is the kind of scores you're going to get for the DES. And so the first score, this simple mean here says 38. So we know we're in red light territory. But then what the taxon does for us, it pulls 8 of these scores over into the F column there and gives us another. Notice this column, this number is even higher. This is saying the high ones are really the ones you don't want to have. Those are the ones that are indicating you've got somebody who's probably has dissociative identity disorder. Then what the taxon does here, if you look down at the bottom number here, is where it says 0.9997. You move the decimal point 2 points over to the right, and you get a 99.9% chance that your client has a severe dissociative disorder. And now you know for sure they qualify as a red light client, which means you're going to be stabilizing and working with different skills for a year or more before you start to do EMDR. The reason that this is so important is, unlike the yellow light clients who, if you use EMDR with them, they just dissociate away from them. You're not really harming them at all. You're just kind of wasting everybody's time because they just dissociate away from it, but they protect themselves by getting numb. So, but if you start doing EMDR with someone who has created these multiple parts, these self states that each are containers of horrendous trauma that they experienced as a child. And if you start opening up those containers before the rest of the mind is stable enough to handle that knowledge, and if you use EMDR to open up those containers so that the full intensity of the emotion is shared with the entire mind, other parts can become very traumatized. Just learning, oh my God, I didn't know we were raped. I didn't know that, and to feel the rape as the person is processing it. So you have to wait quite a while before you're going to do EMDR with this group, because you can really destabilize these clients. They can end up in the hospital the night after they do EMDR if you don't realize you've got somebody with DID. If you just think, well, they had a rough life, but they seem to be functioning okay. And maybe the part that came in to meet you today didn't tell you the whole truth about their past. And so you haven't really dug deep enough to realize that there's a lot more about their childhood than they've revealed so far. So the most important thing is, if you're not planning to learn about how to work with DID, you at least want to know you've got a red light client and not work with anything other than stabilization until you can find somebody who will work with them and reduce their trauma. Because you don't want to open these containers, these parts, these child parts that are holding. Okay.
Yes. So, Dorothy, can I stop sharing now?
Yep. Yeah. Now you
Yeah.
can.
Okay. So I just want to make a couple points here. First of all, as Dorothy said, this is not a diagnostic tool. So yes, we have all these numbers and probabilities and all that. It's an indication. It gives us an indication, but it's not. We can't diagnose a client based on DES results. That's the first thing. The second thing is that these are 28 questions that what I like to do now. I would like to hear your input on that, Dorothy. I like to talk about it. What does that mean that you are, sometimes you buy, you find things that you thought you bought online and you don't remember. and it maybe, I don't know, maybe someone broke into your Amazon account. I don't know. Like we need to talk with the clients and to have this conversation. I think this is, for me, this is a very important part when I'm doing DS with clients is what are these answers? What are their individual experiences of
Mhm.
dissociation or not dissociation or somewhere in between?
Yeah, it's a wonderful way to get information about the clients you would have never gotten simply by doing the standard intake formula and just asking the regular kind of questions that the intakes take. You really find out some very interesting information. And like you said, it's not a diagnostic tool. You can do something like the MID, which is a free assessment to give you a better idea, although they say they're also not diagnostic. And there's other ways that you can work on this, but um, my goal here is to not get you in trouble, not get you jumping into EMDR right away, trying to help your client feel better, because we all want our clients to feel better as soon as possible, in actually making things worse for your client. So even if you're not going to work with this client long term, but you're going to have to work with them for a few months while you're finding somebody, you're going to know not to go out of phase two. But
Okay,
it
so Dorothy, I want to ask you. So we literally yesterday recorded the sixth module of the course that we're going to launch about how to work with EMDR and dissociation. And I learned a lot of things, a lot of techniques and strategies and in theory. And I I think that it's important to talk about the length of preparation, which I think you already mentioned, but I think it might be worth mentioning again because again, coming out of basic EMDR training, a lot of people have this, oh, this worked really well with, my colleagues or the people I met in the training and it got resolved and moved on. And when you work in with dissociation or with clients who have high levels of dissociation, you really need to take your time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. First of all, DID is a skill that only young children have. The ability to create these containers, these self states, these parts that don't communicate with each other is lost as we grow up. And so if you have someone who has these self states or parts, the trauma started really young, really young. And so the more trauma that happened, the longer it's going to take you to stabilize. I've had everything from a client with 2 parts to a client with probably over 75. And if there's been ritual abuse, there's going to be even longer stabilization because that's very intentionally put into their brain that they will never recover by the people who are traumatizing them. So I would say, I don't think I ever really started EMDR earlier than a year, and sometimes even more than that, because it's just, you really have to teach so much. You have to help create a structure within the brain to get these self states to even know each other. Some of them don't know, they don't know that they exist. Some of them may think they are the only self state in the body. So you're working on co-consciousness, you're working on creating structure in the mind, which we do through something called the internal house, where you're working on, you know, just figuring out how to stay awake during the day and go to sleep at night so you don't miss all your appointments, just simple things. Then one of the things that has come along that has really helped us, though, there's two things that I had that are, to me, I think they're pretty new to this field. One is called finding solid ground, which is a technique, a stabilization technique that Dr. Beverly Brand has been working on for years, in which she used randomized control studies of hundreds of DID clients and their therapists, and has come up with a program that is amazing, that will help you stabilize your clients. And it's all comes in a workbook. You can give them handouts from it. It talks about grounding, it talks about breathing, it talks about all different things that you would be teaching them anyway, but you don't have to make up all the tools. They're all right there for you, and you just kind of work your way through the book. And I think it takes about a year to get through that book. You know, again, clients are different. So that has been one huge thing. That just got, that research that she has completed was just published this February. So this is brand new, and I wish I had had this when I was seeing clients, because I spent a lot of time teaching all the things she's already figured out that we want to teach them. And everything is right there, what you're going to tell the clients, what homework you're going to give them. It's beautiful, beautiful, this book. She has a book and a workbook called Finding Solid Ground. That is a breakthrough in this phase 2 work that we have to do. And then the other breakthrough that happened was the creation of the FLASH technique. And FLASH is an outgrowth of EMDR. It was created by Phil Manfield as a part of phase 2 stabilization. And it's something that doesn't involve having to feel the trauma. And many of you have learned FLASH technique. A lot of people have learned it. There's other people that are teaching it. All the different approaches seem to work. They all are based on the same. But what happens is, by not thinking of whatever is painful and thinking of something that's engaging instead, SUD goes down on your trauma. And I have been able to use this very early on with parts, dissociative parts, because I'm not asking them to open up their containers and feel it. I'm asking them to put their stuff in a box and engaging with me with the FLASH technique, and all of a sudden their SUD starts coming down. And before you know it, the intensity of the entire system, the whole mind, as you work with part after part with FLASH, you know, everything just hurts less. And so you can actually reduce the time it takes before you're going to be ready to do EMDR now that we have FLASH. And I certainly wish I had had FLASH earlier in my career, but it's very wonderful that we have it now. And with the class that we're teaching, Phil Mansfield is going to give anyone who wants it a 50% off coupon for his 6-hour basic FLASH training. So if you haven't taken it yet, we can get you one of those coupons, and you can learn FLASH yourself. It's a game changer, I think, in working with this type of severe trauma. I would never, I would never work with DID now without the FLASH.
Yeah, I know that you and I talked about FLASH, and you said you found it later in your career, and you wish you had this this tool really earlier. Can you talk maybe briefly about FLASH and what it does and how it helps specifically for clients with high level of dissociation?
So the way FLASH works, it works with what's called working memory, we think. This is all theory, but you ask the client, you know, what event they want that hurts a lot, they would like to feel better about. And before that, they just say, okay, I want to, they don't even have to tell you which it is. You just have them think about it for 1 second, just really quick. And then you have them put it in a box, put a lid on it, put the feelings, the emotions, negative cognition, anything that has anything to do with it in a box. You push it far away, and then you talk to the person about whatever you want to talk about. What are you planning to get at the grocery store after our session? Or how do you make a cake? Or tell me about your vacation that you just got back from. Anything that's not connected at all to what you put in the box. And what happens is, the more you engage this person talking about something that is not relevant at all, the more you fill up working memory. And when you fill up, working memory holds information for about 20 minutes. And at the end of the 20 minutes, it has to either save it again to long-term memory, or it has to really sit and say, this isn't important. So when you push that memory away, you say to the client, this isn't important right now. So working memory says, oh, you know, the therapist just said what's over in the box is not important. So I'm going to dump some of that emotion out here. I just don't have room for it all. And before you know it, every time you check in the box, there's less emotion, less clarity to the memory. Somehow that whole memory is kind of being It's not really processed, it's just being desensitized. Okay, it's a little different than EMDR. And at the end of your flash technique, it might be down to a 2. Doesn't have to be down to 0. And when it's saved, it goes back into long-term memory, it's saved as a 2. And it's always going to be a 2. So that particular image now has been desensitized without them having to feel it at all. Is that a good explanation? That's the
Yeah.
theory.
Tell us a little more about Flash, or
Well, yeah.
difference between basic Flash and advanced Flash, or
Okay. Actually, I think there's a lot of questions here that I may not get to all of them. Maybe I can glance at some of those. Okay. Would that be okay? I'll do that. Okay. Where do you find the Excel spreadsheet? You have to have Excel on your computer or some other version. There's several other programs besides Microsoft Office that have an Excel-like program. I think Open Office works, but the link is going the link is going to be on the handout that they post after this is over. So you just click on that, it will open it up for you. It's very simple. Okay. One of the things I know Rotem wanted to do was to ask you if you would like to take, let me tell you a little bit about the class. The class is we have 6 90-minute recordings, and then every other week, we're going to have a 90-minute discussion group. So 1 week you just watch a recording at any time that works for you, and you get the handouts and the links. And then the next week you have 90 minutes with me and Rotem, and you can answer questions, you can ask questions, you can share your DESs, you can talk about, where you may or may not understand the dissociation work. And so it's going to be actually 12 weeks long. Okay. But you only have to be there. And even if you can't make the discussion, the live discussion, we're going to record that for you too. So you can actually not show up in person at all, but then of course you wouldn't get your own questions answered. You might be able to send them to me by on one of the chats or something if you can't make them in person. So during that 12 weeks, I'm going to try to teach you all the basics that you need to learn to be able to understand the advanced classes that you might want to take. Okay. So I'm going to teach you some skills of working with people once they are stabilized. And I'm going to give you lots of things to read. I'm going to have some other videos you can watch for free. You can learn as much as you want on this program. My goal here is mostly just to get a whole lot of you really excited about learning to work with these people. They've been through so much, and it's just so hard that there's so few people that can actually help them. And now we have so much knowledge that we didn't have 20 years ago of how to help them, that it's really a shame that we don't get more of our, to me, EMDR is the gold standard of trauma training, and we are the ones that should also be learning how to work with the most severely dissociated. So that's why I'm doing this training. Let me see what else is. What is my categorization for green, yellow? So it's kind of just a gut feeling. This is just a gut feeling. If you feel like someone doesn't really dissociate and they've answered your questions, if they gave you a high answer, but it was because of a non-dissociative reason that they gave you that, I would say, 10, 12 and under is probably a green light, but you can't just say a number. It can't be that, because one person's 12 would not be another person's 12. So it's really more of your gut feeling of, yeah, this person seems to be able to handle strong emotions without dissociating away from it. Over 30 is when we see the red light being identified. So I would say, the yellow light might be from 10 to 20, 10 to 25, somewhere's in there. Again, people report, they over-report, they under-report, and they just can't, you can't have a simple number. Does that make sense? Let me see what other questions we have in the chat.
yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, but
Yeah.
I would like people to write in the chat. We haven't decided when we're going to have these 6 live sessions. What's going to work best for you? I was thinking maybe at the end of a work night or a Friday night at like starting 5:15 or 5:30, or, and I'm on the East Coast. I don't know where you all are, so that you kind of can have finished your day and not have to stop clients. Other people might want to have it at lunchtime, just take an extra long lunch. So if you have a preferred time or date, I'd really appreciate when you would like to have the live sessions, because we'd really like to get as many of you in those live sessions as possible without having to lose money and cancel clients. I don't even mind doing that on a Sunday afternoon. So whatever you would like, if you would put that in there. We were going to have a survey, so you could just do that real quickly. But that would be really helpful for us. Once we have that, we can let you know when it'll be. And I'm not even sure what the price is, but I know there's a discount if you're at this training today. And so we'll put all that information when we post the recording of this in a couple days. We'll have the information of the price and the time and the day and everything. We'll probably start it sometime maybe in June. I envision it as kind of like a summer program. So 3 months, June, July, August, something like that. And yeah, I think we really wanted to wait to see who showed up and what would work best with your schedule, because I really want to talk to you in person as much as possible. And you don't have to have a DID client right now. You will get one eventually, I can promise you. If you're a good EMDR therapist, they're going to come in. And, with all the social media now, it's a lot of people come in. It's not a mystery anymore. When I first started out, I had to explain what DID was to clients when they would start telling me they heard voices, and they couldn't believe that I didn't hear voices. But now you don't. Now there's been enough movies and social information about it that part of it is okay. I'm seeing some Fridays come up, Friday mornings. Just keep putting your ideas in there, and we will try to Friday at lunchtime. That might be good. Yeah. If you would also put, which time zone you're in? East Coast, Central, Mountain, Pacific, because obviously lunchtime is going to be different for all of us. But I'm very flexible, so I will try to take all of your preferences and pick the one that's most convenient for everybody, and then hopefully you can arrange your schedule a little bit to fit. Because I think I don't see myself as a huge expert on dissociation, but I'm a really good expert on beginning to work with dissociation. I had to kind of learn all this on my own. I took classes wherever I could take them. And it's only been recently, since COVID, when all of a sudden the wonderful classes all went online. And now you can get classes from all over the world with the best trainers in dissociation. So you're at a good time to learn, but until you learn this basic stuff, you're not going to really understand how to weave in the advanced skills that these other experts will be teaching you. Okay. Rotem, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here with choppy internet. So I apologize. I wanted to do also the giveaway for bilateralstimulation.io for people who participated in our weekly challenges. It was all related to dissociation. And thank you for all of you who participated. So I'll do it later. I think I'm just going to record it and then post the recording. I'll just record my screen and do it. I like to do it live, but that would not work right now with my internet. Yeah.
Let me also mention that everybody can have a free copy of my CD. I made a CD years ago with all the things I got tired of teaching my clients every single week: abdominal breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, safe place, all of these. I called it Finding Your Way Back to Calm. And I've given Rotem all the MP3s of it, and you can have them for free. You can give them to your clients. You can give them to other therapists. I own all the copyrights, and I am not I'm giving you all permission to share them as much as you want. There's 3 in the middle there that are about hand warming, and that requires a little bit more training. You need to get a little thermometer that you tape on your finger to do that. But if anybody's interested, I can also explain that a little bit better during the training. But anyway, that's free for all of you, and even for all of you that are watching the video recorded. That's my gift to you. And there's also 3 tracks that are just relaxation music. So if your clients get tired of hearing me talk and they just want to listen to the music while they're doing that skill, they can just listen to the music too. Okay, anything else, Rotem? Okay, any other questions? You could just unmute, and if there's any, if we have a couple minutes left, I'd be happy to answer some more questions.
I had the question of how expensive that 6-session training is.
I don't know. Rotem, did we figure that out yet?
No, we're still trying to
For
figure.
you.
Well, yeah. Well, we're not gonna make it expensive. We're not gonna make it, unaccessible to anyone. So, the way we work with other trainings, we're gonna make it accessible. And if people have issues paying the full amount, reach out to B or to Jessica, and we'll find a way to make it accessible to everyone. I think it's really important that people know how to work with dissociation, because as Dorothy said, whether you know it or not, you are working with clients with dissociation when you're working with the EMDR and trauma. So you might as well know how to work with that. So we don't know. We haven't decided yet. We focused on the content. Yeah, that's still to be determined. But it's not going to be a very expensive training. And again, I don't know who asked that, but whoever you are, if you can't find it hard to pay for it or whatever, reach out and we'll find, we'll do sliding scale or whatever.
Yeah, I'm in a nonprofit organization, so yeah, my income isn't as high as some of these trainings needs to be for. So that's why. And I would love my colleagues to do the same. I mean, to be able to attend the training too.
One really nice thing I didn't mention is I do volunteer work. In Ethiopia. I teach therapists there how to do EMDR and Flash. And Rotem is donating a portion of all of the income that we get to furthering our work there. Even though we're doing most of it on Zoom now, there's still expenses. And so thank you, Rotem, for doing that. And so all of you are also working with helping spread EMDR all over Africa too.
Yeah. I don't know if there are any other questions.
I have one question about the DES scale. I noticed in the 3rd column, the numbers that were transposed in the top of the 3rd column, the T column, the numbers were transposed over as they were in the inside column, but there was nothing below 30.
Well, I made those numbers up. And so I was trying to show you what it looks like when someone has actual DID. They are going to answer those particular questions high.
Okay. I just thought
So, yeah.
there are 10 on that side there, and yeah, okay.
Right. Those are just examples.
It's just,
but if you have DID, you are going to answer those. Those are very common symptoms that most people with DID will say they have.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, one thing more. I don't know if we have any time left, but the question number 27 in the DES is my magic question, and that's the one that asks if you hear voices. Okay, a lot of people misunderstand that. We have something called witness consciousness that we kind of talk to ourselves all the time, all day long, but we're not actually talking to ourselves out loud, and we're not answering ourselves. We're just saying, oh my God, what am I going to wear today? I don't know. It's warm out. I wonder the temperatures, just kind of, I call it the yappity yap. We're just talking to ourselves all the time. And a lot of people will read that question and think that's what you mean by, do you hear voices? So they're going to give that like, yeah, 100% of the time. I'm always hearing voices. You really have to, if you see low scores throughout the DES and that one's really high, you have to explain what witness consciousness is and make sure they're saying, no, I actually hear the voices. I have a little girl inside me that talks back to me. I have a big boy, I have like all these voices. Okay, then yeah, you can give that a high number. So very often, someone will give it like a 10%. And it's like, even if it looks like a yellow light scale, but they tell you that 10% of the time they actually do hear voices, they're a red light. Because there's only two reasons you hear voices. You either have dissociative voices or you have psychotic voices. And you're going to have to figure out which is which. There's no medication that will get rid of dissociative voices, although people who have dissociative identity disorder sometimes need medication for anxiety or depression, things like that. But if they are psychotic voices, they will probably say the voices are coming from outside my head, like they're over in the corner. I had a client say to me, well, the voice is coming right over there in the corner. Can't you hear it? That's very often a psychotic voice. And psychotic voices are repetitive, and they usually just say nasty things like, you're a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit, kill yourself, you should never have been born. They're not like a personality. They're just voices that are telling you usually horrible things about yourself. Whereas dissociative voices can be, the self states can have different ages, different sexes. They can even be animals, unicorns. They can be any image that a child might make up to be able to describe that particular part. And they usually just talk about simple stuff like, what am I going to wear today? What do you think we should eat? I don't want to go to school today. Let's go, shopping instead, or whatever. So they usually say they're coming from inside my head. Okay. And so if they say that to you, you can say, do they have different ages? Do they have names? Do they look different? And those are the kinds of things, if your client starts saying yes, there's a little boy, there's a girl, there's whatever, then you are talking to different self states. And those, you do not want someone to misdiagnose them as schizophrenic and load them up on antipsychotics. So whereas they might need antidepressants or an anti-anxiety pill, something for sleep, something like that, you have to be careful that they don't get misdiagnosed as schizophrenic, because they can be kind of zombified. Then they're so over medicated on a medication they don't need that they have trouble participating in therapy altogether. Okay, so that question 27 is really tricky. Ask about it. Even if they have a 10 and they swear they actually can hear voices, they are a red light. Got to stabilize them first. You got to, if they are schizophrenic, you can actually, if they get stable on the medication, you can go and do EMDR with them. But until they're stable, if they have to be able to tell what's real and what's not real. When someone's having a psychotic episode, they think that the psychotic experience is real, and so they're not going to be able to do EMDR. All right, I'm glad I remembered to tell you that. Any other questions before we say goodbye to everybody? We'll try to get you some more information and a start date and a price, and there'll be some resources that you'll get in a couple days when we publish the recording. Okay.
Yeah. Can you just repeat? You said they're always really young.
Well, most self states are created when the child is young, but once the child has the ability to create a self state, they can keep creating them as they grow up. Okay. I said the ability to create self states begins in early childhood. Okay. So if a child is not abused until they're 10, they're going to be traumatized. They're going to get PTSD. They might even develop derealization and depersonalization, but their brain may not have the ability to make these separate containers, these alters, these parts, the way if the abuse happened when they were 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Better? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about people that always say, oh, I'm such an idiot, or, that voice that's inside of you that you heard when you were younger and you carry, but as you get older, you realize, well, no, I'm not an idiot. You can sort of change.
And you're remembering it, but you're not actually hearing it.
You're
know,
feeling the same feeling of feeling
not,
shame.
it's part of a stuck trauma for sure, which would is, whichever one of your parents or older siblings or whatever was saying that to you, that you're having kind of a flashback. So that's more like a PTSD memory of being told that, or an attachment injury, where if you were told it many, many, many times in childhood, you can you'll still really re-experience it because it's an unprocessed trauma, but it's not a dissociative voice. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, any other questions? I hope to see you all soon, and we'll get you, if there's anything else that I see in the questions when we hang up, I will try to answer that on the handouts that we give you in a couple days.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. Bye-bye.